a very good chance that a person coming into the polls and also voting an absentee ballot would have voted twice. Again, except for the central count. But the particular aspect of this bill that I would really like to address today is just how important it is to change the language regarding the absentee elector who applies for their ballot, their absentee ballot, via email or fax. That's what I really want to talk about today. So right now, an elector who votes an absentee ballot and that is required to provide photo ID. If they mail their ballot, their request in, they have to also include a copy of that photo ID. They go on their computer, they email the request. They don't. They can include that with their ballot. What happens then is it becomes the responsibility of the poll workers on election night to ensure that the voter did in fact include a copy of their photo ID, instead of keeping that responsibility on the municipal clerk. The municipal clerk they actually have no way of knowing if that voter followed the instructions and included a copy of their photo ID until after the election, when all of the materials are returned to that municipal clerk. If the voter fails to include a copy of their ID, then the poll workers have to treat that absentee ballot as a provisional ballot. And for anyone not familiar with the provisional ballot process, you might think it's a good solution to say, let's treat this as a provisional ballot. But I really want to stress that for the integrity of the voting process, we really want to have as few provisional ballots as possible. We do have reliable, dedicated poll workers, and they try to do the best job that they can. But the provisional ballot process is somewhat complex. During a significant election, probably the recall elections, the November election, there is the potential to have dozens or possibly even hundreds of these provisional ballots for these large elections in large municipalities. And mistakes will be made. Absentee ballots that should be counted won't be. Absentee ballots that should be rejected will be counted, and there will be inconsistencies throughout the state. But more importantly, even if every single poll worker on election night through the entire state did their job 100%, caught it and did it and made these ballots into provisionals, the voter, that absentee voter, is not aware that their ballot became a provisional ballot and was not counted. Someone goes to the polls and they have to vote a provisional ballot, they're aware of that fact. They're handed a piece of paper. They're told specifically what they need to do, that it's their responsibility to return with the proper information or call the clerk or whatever it is that they need to do in order to have their ballot counted. But if we don't change this, and we allow these people who request their ballot by email or fax to include a copy of their photo ID, and they don't, and a provisional ballot is made, these absentee voters have no clue that their ballot was not counted. And they don't know, they're unaware that they have to take some action in order to have their ballot counted. So really, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, if you're for or against voter ID. We need to make sure that there is one consistent process for those people who are required to show a photo ID when they vote absentee, to make sure that that process is the same for everyone. If there's any chance that this bill is not going to go through, I would urge you to at least break apart this portion of it and make sure that this gets passed as soon as possible, in time for, if not the February, at least the April elections, and then the future elections. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the committee? Mr. Leininger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really quickly, so you're advocating for the clerk to open up the absentee to make sure that the identification's in? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, they can't. They're not allowed to.
That's,
we're not advocating for
okay.
it. What we're advocating for is that it doesn't matter how you request your absentee ballot.
Okay.
If I request it by mail, I have to show my photo ID. If I get on my computer and send an email and say I'm requesting an absentee ballot, then I'm allowed to include it with my absentee ballot. That's what we want to eliminate, and this legislation eliminates this.
So just as a follow-up to, so this does fix that
Yes,
issue?
yes,
Okay.
that's why we are in
Okay.
support of this legislation.
Good.
Okay, I need to figure this out. So, let's say I took a trip to, no, I missed that. I missed it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Brenda, for your testimony. I can appreciate hearing from you about not wanting the two separate absentee procedures based simply on the method that somebody uses to apply for absentee ballot. But are you saying, to be in support of this bill, it does a lot more than just that one component? As you said, you want to make sure that you're not prohibited from returning an absentee ballot to an elector. And that seems to be a very crucial part. Something that's important to you and covered forward. And so this bill would in fact prohibit that connecting. We had counsel clarify that for us. So are you still in support of AB 525, or rather it's just like you said, you're not opposed to it, but you're asking for an amendment?
In speaking for the Wisconsin County Clerks Association Elections Committee, their official stance is that they are not opposed. We are not opposed to the bill because of the two portions, this portion and the portion that would prevent someone who did cast an absentee ballot, and the absentee ballot is at the municipal clerk's office, from going to the polls to vote. That is the portion that we like about this bill. The part that does not allow a municipal clerk to return an absentee ballot to a voter, especially if there was something wrong that the voter could correct, that we would like to see that option still in the statutes. But if it means getting rid of this, what I spoke on, in order to have that, we would rather have the consistency of the absentee application process. So an amendment would not be opposed by the clerks related to the being able to send an absentee ballot back to a voter if there's time in order to correct a mistake.
Thank you.
Representative Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for coming for the testimony. I guess what strikes me is that in order to have a situation where absentee voters don't end up with their ballot kind of being tossed into the provisional category and they have no way of finding out, we're going to end up with a situation where voters who choose to vote by absentee are treated differently than voters who vote in person, in that they have to present their identification at the requesting stage rather than actually at the voting stage when they're submitting their ballot. And it just seems like either way we're going to be treating them differently, regardless. Either they're going to be in a situation where they don't know that their ballot has become provisional, or they're going to be in a situation where they're treated differently from every other voter in terms of when they have to present their ID.
Actually, that's incorrect.
Okay.
Because before a person at the polls receives their ballot, they have to show their photo ID. So you go to the polls, there are three things you have to do before you receive your ballot. You have to state your name and address out loud, you have to show photo ID, and you have to sign the folder before you receive that ballot. But what we're doing, what the legislation is right now, for some absentee voters who requested that absentee by fax or email, we're treating them differently by saying, you can have your ballot before you show your photo ID. That's what we want to eliminate. We want to make it consistent so that whether you go up to the polls, whether you request your absentee ballot through the mail, or whether you request your absentee ballot via email and fax, no matter what, if you are required to provide photo ID, you have to show it before you actually get that ballot.
Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask you, Brenda, about, I know you said you were going to encourage, the Wisconsin County Association was going to encourage larger counties to practice the central count method.
I apologize. What I meant was I, as Washington County Clerk, am going to encourage my larger municipalities in my county to do that. At the 2010 November election, our final returns came in just before 3 a.m. in the morning because they were processing absentees that entire time. They could not start processing their absentees, and they had thousands. They could not start until after the polls closed at 8 p.m., which there were voters still in line, so it was closer to 9 p.m. before they could even begin to process their absentees. If they had had central count, those could have been processed during the day, and then they could have just finished up by 9 p.m., 9:30, 10 o'clock. So I, not the Wisconsin Counties Association, so I would encourage it. I, as Washington County Clerk, am going to encourage it. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So when you talked before, you said that, yeah, you were going to do that, but the current system allows you to catch any problems because it's done locally, and that ability won't be done if it's a central location. We won't have that ability. Is there an amendment we could do that would fix that problem then, or are you creating a problem here?
I'm not aware of any process, any fix.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I can't think of anything that
You
would
give
fix
us some
that.
thought, though. Any other questions from the committee members?
I just have,
Representative Zandika.
sorry, but going back to the central count, is it easier, I mean, didn't you say that it's better to not do a central count because then definitely very less likely to have any cases of error or intentional double voting? I mean, do you think the central count is I understand that it's more efficient. It sounds like it's more efficient than a poll workers vote.
But the way the law is right now, a person could vote an absentee ballot and get counted in central count, and then go to the polls, and the poll workers are not aware that the absentee ballot counted because it was done in a separate location through separate count. Where municipalities do not have central count, it's very unlikely that that ballot will get counted twice, that a person could vote twice, both absentee and in person.
So should we consider getting rid of central count?
Well, I'll tell you, I talked to the East Troy clerk, I called her, and also the Cedarburg clerk, and both of those clerks have said that central count has been a saving grace for them, that they would advocate every municipality, no matter what the size, every election, they advocate for a central count. So that's what I've heard from 2 municipal clerks that use central count, that actually have central count.
Do you know how many people in the state are using central count as opposed to?
No one in Washington yet.
Ledge Council, do you have an idea?
It's my understanding that it's 14 municipalities.
Okay. Good. Good. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.